I find what happens when you automate too much, especially with the more rigid systems that are more common right now, is you lock yourself into something and it's hard to change. And this has been a foil to finance departments for a long time, right? They're seen as being a little bit like a stick in the mud, Dr. No types, right? They don't want to change or adapt or anything. That's because it's so hard to get it where it is. And they've automated the crap out of it to get out of all the grunt work. And then when someone makes a change somewhere, it's like, right? In FP&A systems, this is a classic problem, is you add a new dimension or something, and then you got to rebuild all your reports to accommodate that new dimension. And so in some systems you don't need to, but in most systems you will. And it's like, what can I hold off? Do I really need to do that? Or you start to do it and then something else happens and it's a useless change, and you're just left frustrated, and whatever you're going to do with it is going to wind up being too late, and you miss the boat. So it's like automating too much can cause that kind of problem, and I've definitely seen that happen.
Interesting. I've got a slightly different take, or an additional take to what you said, which I wholeheartedly agree with, the difficulty of incremental change, and then you get into that stage of breaking the system and over automate it. Where things are slick, for example, I hate to pick on FP&A again, but we did some research a couple of years ago which looked at the frequency of reforecasting. And what we found was that given automation, people were reforecasting more often. So instead of doing it twice a year, they were doing it every quarter at least, and perhaps on demand. And the problem with it is that they were producing the same result, because everything they were doing was exactly what they did before in the same way. And so, surprise, surprise, they felt like they were doing something, but they actually weren't moving along the path. They weren't improving the situation. So my take on over automation, if you're not thinking about it, if you're simply going through the motions of allowing the machine to take over without really thinking, what am I doing in first principles? Should I be changing assumptions? That is crucial, and I think that's ultimately over automation.
Yep. Yeah, you assume your numbers are right. You assume you're doing the right thing because it's built into the machine, right? And I think that we're going to agree on this point too. And I found, you start to believe it's true even though it's not true, when you should be reviewing, like you said, the assumptions. And then what can also happen, and I've seen this more fairly commonly, is that something's happened in the background and it hasn't broke the machine. So it's still working and turning out its numbers. But because something's changed in the background and you don't know about it, it's actually not delivering what you think it's delivering anymore. And so it could be actually wrong. And the only thing for sure about a plan is that it's going to be wrong. But at least you should understand what's going in there. And so if you don't, and it's wrong because of something you don't know, you're not actually going to get to the right explanation, and your insights are going to be off. And you're going to say you got to make this change when really it's not the change you should have said. I mean, I've seen that frequently happen when you're relying on operational data. So operational data is kind of like where you want to be. To get the best leading indicators, you want to go to your sales and marketing data. And as an example, if you're using Salesforce, and something changes deep down in the way you roll up your sales funnel, somebody takes a shortcut and re-instrumenting things, you don't know about this, your data might not even be comparable anymore. And it just, those things just accumulate, right? And then suddenly you're not doing what you're expected to do or what you're expecting to do. That can be very frustrating. And so it's over automation could be right at the tip of that. And it's people who don't really understand how to use and instrument that system and keep the hygiene clean. You don't have people in there who understand how it works or looking at the output to see if it makes sense.